Hi, everyone. My name is Stephen O'Brien. I am the current 2023 to 2024 AMCTO president. My home role here is at the City of Guelph as the city clerk. And before I jump into things, I want to take this time to remind some of you that are watching really the purpose of our Municipal Monitor Extra video series. This is a relatively new feature or new venture we've been pursuing at AMCTO. The Municipal Monitor Extra really intends to sort of provide a little bit more discussion around some of our Municipal Monitor series and stories and important topics from the print publication and digital version of our quarterly publication that we put out. And the intent here is to sort of add a little bit of extra, a chance to touch base with some of the people and the stories that are told in that publication. As our association continues to evolve, we're continuing to look for new ways to really connect with you as members of our association and reach a much larger audience of municipal professionals who may benefit from hearing a little bit more about, again, the people and the stories that are behind some of the articles that you read in the Municipal Monitor. Some of you may remember that we released our first go at this type of session or this type of series back in June. And that was during Pride Month. That featured my predecessor, former association president, now past president, Alana Arthurs, and another past president, actually, Town of Renfrew CAO, Robert Tremblay. And Rob shared with us really candidly his unique experience working in local government as an openly out individual. So I just wanted to take this time to say thanks to Alana for blazing the trail, and a special thanks, obviously, to Rob for sharing his story with us and for kicking off again this first series. For this Municipal Monitor Extra series, I am really, really pleased to be joined by a longtime friend. Feels basically like family, Cathy. I'm pleased to be joined by the clerk at the Municipality of Northern Bruce Peninsula, Cathy Addison. Cathy was a mentor of mine when I started in this municipal sector through AMCTO's internship program. And I'm thinking, Cathy, it was 2008, 2009, if I remember correctly, but it's really good to have you back. Thanks for joining. And we'll get into some questions. For those of you who don't know about Cathy and the wonderful place that is Northern Bruce Peninsula, Cathy and her team recently received a 2023 EA Danby Award, and that was in and around modernization of Northern Bruce's digital records management system. That was featured in our Q3 Municipal Monitor, and so today you'll get to hear a little bit more about the project, but more importantly about what went into making that happen, the teamwork and the planning, and how the project like this really does come to life and has the potential to shape future municipal innovations for some of our other members. So, Cathy, good to see you. Thanks for coming. Perhaps you can start off by telling us in your own words why this project was so important and what it means to have that work acknowledged through receiving an EA Danby Award.
Sure. Thanks, Stephen, and thanks for the great intro there. For the Municipality of Northern Bruce Peninsula receiving the EA Danby Award, it was huge and heartwarming. For a little municipality in rural and, somewhat a remote part of Ontario, and we now have a permanent residence over 4,401. For years, it was always 399.99. So we're grateful that we've passed that, but to acknowledge our work with our new records management system, we were thrilled to be recognized. I'm very proud of our team here at Northern Bruce, who were instrumental in getting our new records management in place. We put it in place in a year of the 2022 election, so it was a busy time for everybody that was involved.
I bet.
And this award, it further demonstrates, the staff's commitment to, thinking outside the box, to be innovative and how to make things work. So with the teamwork, continuously striving to implement the system and new technologies to improve the delivery of, critical services, while of course maximizing the value of the taxpayers' hard-earned dollars. So, and Stephen, you're familiar with our size. So here, we wear many hats and we have limited resources. So we outgrew our paper central filing system and we had to implement something. So we went forward with moving into the digital records management system, and it tracks our records and how to manage our retention and our disposal. And so far we're really happy, but we are continuing to work with it.
That's great. Yeah, and I actually do remember vividly. I remember the hallway, your office being on the left, and that paper storage room being off to the right side, the traditional sort of file storage space that probably still exists in many municipalities. So again, kudos to Northern Bruce for, in a way, blazing a trail for municipalities your size as well. And maybe with that, maybe Cathy, you can share with us. We all went through a time that we probably don't remember about 3 years ago. I hope I knock on wood that we're beyond what we saw through the pandemic. But there's a silver lining to that, and it provides opportunities. And I'm sure some of the work in your project was sort of spurred on by the need to move to more digital processes. But maybe you can share a little bit your thoughts about how municipal innovation has changed since the pandemic, and what opportunities and new challenges did this bring for you and could bring for others.
Yeah, so with the pandemic hitting Northern Bruce Peninsula, we had no ability to work from home. So we quickly mobilized to meet the urgent and evolving needs of the problem solving and landing an effective way of how we were going to, do this from home. So municipal staff, we didn't have any ability to work from home, so we had council meetings in person only. There was a huge changeover in staff in the spring of 2020. And however, council and staff, we work as a team moving forward. It was a real domino effect because we also needed our computer system updated. We didn't have fiber in place to run our computer system, and we needed to access municipal records from home. So, living in a rural and remote part of Ontario, it comes with benefits and certainly disadvantages, but we were able to come together as a group and to make day-to-day operations flow better. So we were, if things happen for a reason, it certainly spurred us to say, hey, we got to get moving here, get things working so people can work from home. So yeah, great experience.
Yeah, and it might be rural and remote, Northern Bruce, but it is a beautiful, beautiful part of the province. It's a place that, again, as I said earlier in the intro, I still a very, very special place in my heart for Northern Bruce. Um, Maybe you can talk about it, because I think sometimes people will look at different sized municipalities and say, well, easy for the big fish to be innovative in spaces, and smaller, perhaps rural municipalities, but even smaller, sort of small urban type municipalities. The classic thing we hear is, well, just not enough capacity, either financially or people resources and things like that. But maybe you can talk a little bit about in what ways municipalities can be more innovative. You kind of touched on it, right? Sometimes it's because of sort of tidal wave moments in history and time, like a pandemic, but other times there's things. I'm sure there are other examples in Northern Bruce where your municipality's been able to be really innovative in small ways. So maybe you can share a little bit about ways that municipalities can be more innovative.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Stephen. So more municipalities, they're declaring themselves as innovators and finding new processes to deliver age-old services. And municipalities, tinkering with technology, leveraging digital services, learning from the private sector, and perhaps most importantly, municipalities, they're communicating and collaborating to learn from each other's experience. I know in Bruce County, we have clerks meetings that we get together once a month,
Yeah.
spin things off each other. And that's a great way of coming together to see what works, what maybe works in one area won't work in the other. So yeah, teamwork is a big thing these days, working with municipal government for sure.
Yeah, and that kind of jumps off to the next question I had. We know that to be innovative, and actually just to be quite frankly a high functioning team, you need to have really good, strong collaboration.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm wondering what advice you might have for other leaders in our sector that are looking to build really collaborative teams, because no innovation in the sense of the innovation that you brought forward as a result of the project you had, and that sort of netted out in the EA Danby Award. No type of innovation like that is really possible without having a really high functioning collaborative team. So any advice you have for folks about how you go about building and fostering that kind of collaboration on the team at Northern Bruce Peninsula?
Okay. Yeah, certainly. As far as success, what that means to me here, first, I believe, and you must be happy at what you're doing to be successful. And at the end of the day, you have to know what's best moving forward, and you can see the results in your efforts. So success here for us is certainly getting younger people starting at a younger age, like bringing them in as summer students. We had a summer student years ago that actually ended up being on part of our municipal council in the last term. So it's getting them in there, getting their interest. Um, it's also like I've worked in municipal government for 24 years and I've watched this municipality grow. And, you have to enjoy what you're doing and you truly have to bring people on board with the best interests. And big thing too is you have to listen to these young people. They look through a lens differently than say us older people do. So you got to curb their interests, get them on board early. And certainly you've got to have that teamwork. You've got to work as a team, keep positive and listen to them.
Yeah. So much of what you said makes sense because I think I was at a session just recently and there was sort of about digital transformation. And one thing that I mentioned in a sort of a question answer period we had was one of the top skills you need to have to build high function, transformative, digitally focused teams isn't sort of necessarily the technology knowledge or the experience of having done this before. It's empathy. And
Yeah,
empathy is just as you said, like that concept of listening, hearing people,
yeah,
engaging with them, getting
yeah,
different sides of the story. So sometimes the most sought after digital skill isn't really digital in the way we think. It's actually just it's about people interactions. It's about leading with a degree of empathy and having that skill set. Again, you clearly we've got a guideline here that we're following, but you're leading great into the next questions, which is you mentioned 24 years in the municipal world. I know you've been living and working in your community even pre your municipal experience. So and in the small knit community, how everything happens. But in your municipal career, you've had the fortunate opportunity to mentor some people. I think of the two interns you had, myself and Tara, but maybe as a sort of lived experience municipal leader, clerk, why do you think younger generations should get involved in local government? You mentioned you had a younger person on the elected side, but maybe you can just sort
right.
of talk about why that's important.
Well, I think first of all and foremost, to make a team successful, you have to allow that creativity within your staff. And that begins with trust. And trust in an organization breeds innovation. You have to be open mind. You have to, listen to people and let them speak freely without being judged or dismissed. And I think nowadays, like I said, young people see things through a different lens, and that's a good thing because they can bring a lot to your table and they can bring a lot to a position. Like, with computer systems these days, and if you haven't kept up your courses and training, there's new ticks or tricks that they can bring to the table to say, hey, I can save you some time. So I think it's very important, keep that open mind, don't judge, and one day at a time.
Yeah. In that line of thinking, any thoughts on succession planning? Where have you seen it work really well? Do you see that there's spots where we can be doing things better? Is Northern Bruce doing anything sort of in particular to think around succession planning and leadership development or just general overall employee and workforce development?
Yeah, certainly. So recently, our municipality, we created what we call a succession plan toolkit, and it emphasizes on the importance of engaging your other employees or the ones that work under you and fostering their growth with aligning and hopefully, putting them down the road as a future clerk. So training is important, and you have to provide a clear pathway for advancement and tailor their development plans according to what you're looking for and what you're expecting them to go into a position in the future. And be proactive, like do that now. Like you think, oh, I got years before I'm going to retire. But sometimes if you can tailor them into that position and go, hey, I'll be satisfied when I, close my office door for the last time to know that everything's being looked after and you've trained them to the best of your ability.
Yeah, yeah, it's sort of a handshake, isn't it? It's when one
Yeah,
story ends, you close that
yeah,
door, but the next
yeah.
day, if it closes on a Friday, on the Monday, someone else is coming in there, and it's comforting for you to know that you've left it in a good place. But I think it's comforting for someone else
Yeah,
who's moving into a role to know that it isn't like, trying to scale Mount Everest on day one. There's
Yeah,
been a bit of a pathway that's been laid out for folks. So yeah,
yeah.
that's
I think the other thing, Stephen, is, you can't work in silos, and especially in small municipalities. You wear many hats. I'm the clerk, but I also look after planning, and I also am the CMC alternate. And right now, while my deputy's off, I'm also the emergency management coordinator. So, hey, you get a variety of training.
I remember that well. And I think I've talked to many folks around the province and in our sector about how I remember thinking back to the opportunity that internship offered me, and I thought, there were opportunities to work in larger cities, but Northern Bruce had an appeal for me when I met with the team there, and we talked about a work plan, and it was literally like, we're going to put you into all of these spaces, and that goes back to
Mhm,
your answer around succession planning, just
mhm.
opening doors, and it doesn't have to be anything more than, hey, would you like to come along and join for this discussion, or why don't you come and listen on what we're talking about here? There is so much that you can learn from those experiences, and places like Northern Bruce that embrace that and welcome that are leaders absolutely when it comes to succession planning, because you now have people in your organization that you can say, well, I can plug and play them in many different places in our organization if someone's off on a leave, or we have a pending retirement, or someone changes a career path or something. You've got people you can move into those spaces.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing for AMCTO too, that perhaps when they're doing the intern, that's one thing, just don't put you in the clerk's department. Again, think outside the box. Who knows? Maybe you wanted to be a fire chief one day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And for our members, we continue to advocate for the reinstallation of that
Mhm.
internship program. We're thinking about creative ways right now, so we're all sort of hopeful that that's coming back in some shape or form in
Yeah,
hopefully the near future. Maybe we will one last question before we wrap up, but
sure.
and sort of going back to the technology and why it's valuable, but how do you think adopting new systems, new technologies, innovations, how does that continue to be valuable for your municipality? And how does it, you kind of touched on this, but how does it impact other areas of work? I mean, you kind of mentioned the fact that it can be a time saver. It can lighten the load on one side of the ledger so that you can maybe take on new processes or new services or new ways of thinking, or look at the next innovative project you want to do. But is
Mhm.
there anything else you want to add to that? How does it impact other areas of work for you, or also the work you do with your other departments in Northern Bruce Peninsula?
Okay, sure. Thanks, Stephen. So one thing I will mention, that if any small rural municipality or larger center is looking at implementing a new records management system, what I've learned, don't put deadlines on yourself for this type of project because it's huge.
Yeah.
Also, slow and steady will win the race in the end. Currently, we're working on towards getting our property files into the system. However, you can appreciate when this municipality amalgamated back in 1999, we had three former townships and one village combined. And I'll tell you, the paper, the old bylaws, the minutes, I mean, that's huge. But now, as far as, getting the system in place and somewhat working, staff certainly now they can find records, easier to access. If you're doing an FOI request, it's easier to track the records. We're finding it's reducing any litigation risks, and it's reducing labor and clerical mistakes within indexing. We can find stuff easier, and it's certainly streamlining any document circulation throughout the municipality. Um, oh, the best one is when, all clerks, when agreements come due, tracking those agreements. We've got it, there's a date now, so you don't have to worry about, handwriting or putting it in your index to say, hey, there's a deadline here. It's automatic. That's the best thing I love about it right now. More things to come, I'm sure.
Yes, and now you're making me rack my brain. So um, the amalgamated municipalities, there was Eastner, Lions Head, that's the village, I think.
Yes.
Lindsay, and what was the other one?
So St. Edmunds, which is
St. Edmunds.
Tobermory. Yeah.
Yes,
St. Edmunds, Lindsay, Eastner, and the village of Lions
the
Head.
village of
So
Lions Head. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Pretty much the whole northern end of the peninsula.
Yeah, keep telling. Like I'll say it again to the listeners. If you have, I mean, I most folks know about Tobermory, but go and visit the rest of the peninsula. It's the I can safely say this. I think it's the most beautiful part of this province for sure. It's stunning. Um, Anyways, Cathy, thanks so much for joining us today and for having the conversation with me today. I really hope that those that were watching learned a little bit about your story, a little bit more about your story. I encourage folks to look back at that article from the Q3 issue of the Municipal Monitor, and hopefully some of the things that you shared with listeners today gives some takeaways for them and
Yeah.
allows them to think about some things to bring back to their own day-to-day work. I will say thanks to everyone for watching. Stay tuned for more of these Municipal Monitor extras to come in the following months, and usually sort of following after the release of each issue. For those members who are interested in submitting their innovative projects for consideration of our AMCTO Awards program, stay tuned. Continue to stay tuned for more information, including the award nomination deadlines and submission details that will be coming early in the new year. So thank you so much, Cathy. And thanks to everyone for listening. Take care.
Thank you.